Let me begin by raising a contentious issue. Everybody in America knows that we have a serious national debt. It's over $16 trillion. We have a deficit of $850 billion. There's a great debate taking place, being manifested right now by the so-called sequestration, which many of us think is not the way we should be going. But be that as it may, there is a proposal out there, as I mentioned in my opening remarks, called the chain CPI, which is well known within the Beltway, not so well known outside of the Beltway. And what it does is it reconfigures inflation for seniors and for veterans, people who are on federal programs, suggesting that the current formulation is too generous, that we're giving too much and we're overestimating what beneficiaries should receive. It would mean very significant cuts for Social Security beneficiaries as well as for disabled veterans. Let me start with Mr. Tarantino. Do you think that's a good idea?
Absolutely not, Senator. I think it's a terrible idea, actually. It astounds me to the extent to which we try to find creative ways to keep asking veterans to sacrifice more and more. And you know, this is particularly troubling because you're trying to couch cutting veterans benefits in this very complex, wonky sounding thing, chain CPI. You can talk about market forces and all this stuff that's just meant to confuse the basic issue. Is that, yes, we need to balance the budget, but we want to do it by cutting veterans benefits and doing it on the backs of the people who have sacrificed the most over the last 10 years. That is completely unacceptable, Senator.
Okay. Other comments?
Mr. Chairman, when I came in the Marine Corps, I made less than $100 a month. I was married, I was already married and had to make it on those kind of funds. So I think one of the reasons that we stayed in the service, one of the reasons that a lot of veterans stay in the service because of the camaraderie and because of the association that we have. And I think they've pretty much paid their dues. I mean, I hadn't deployed as much as some guys or gals have, but I have 5 trips to Okinawa, 1 year unaccompanied, a couple trips to Vietnam unaccompanied. I mean, not to mention all the regular deployments and everything else. So I think they've paid their dues. Like I said, many veterans have paid them more than I have, but I think it's a bad idea too. We think that the veterans have paid their portion of it, and when I looked at my civilian counterparts on both sides, they were making a lot more money and they weren't deploying and all of those other things. So once again, I think that's one of the reasons we think veterans have paid their dues, sir.
The essential arguments for the chain CPI is that the COLAs over the years have been too generous. Mr. Susino, you think the COLAs have been too generous?
I'm sorry.
I pressed it, didn't I?
I thought you called
I
me.
said in our state it's unconscionable, and I restate that because I don't understand why we even look at the veterans, disabled veterans, and think that they are getting too much. That word didn't sound right to me, getting too much. The sacrifice that they gave maybe was too much. And you're saying it's too much now? They took their time, they were asked to do what they did, and to even think about it or sit in the back room and think about cutting the veterans disabled. Unconscionable. They gave their best, and the government should do their best for the veterans, period.
Thank you.